about you, but I like what I feel this morning. It's such an honor to be up here again, and we're going to get right to it so I don't bypass my time. But I just want to thank Pastor and the ministerial staff for giving me another opportunity to be up here, and my wife and my family members who support me in all sorts of ways that I'm very thankful for. You may be seated. I'm going to start off with a little story. Basically the moral of what is to make the best out of a bad situation. So there was unfortunately a sinful man who passed away, and judgment was passed upon him, and he went down to the place no one wants to go, and he was greeted at the door by Satan, and he said, you're here. We're going to go ahead and make this an interesting visit for you. So the first thing the devil did was put him in a room with a bunch of rocks and a sledgehammer and turned the heat way up where it's nice and humid and walked away. Next thing you know, he comes back in a little while, sees the guy swinging that hammer, whistling, happy, can't seem to stop. He said, what's the deal here? He goes, man, it reminds me of home. I'm from Georgia. This is nothing. And he's like, all right, I got you. So he turned on the wind and the rain and just started storming like it's a monsoon. Then the devil came back a little later, and the guy's still singing, swinging, happy as can be. He's like, what's the deal? He said, this reminds me of planting season during Georgia, April time. This is nothing. I can swing here all day. He goes, all right, you know what? I got something that you're not used to. He turned down the temperature, and next thing you know, it's snowing, it's freezing. He can't even seem to walk without, a limb wanting to fall off. And he gets back in a little later, and he goes, I bet I got him now. Walks in there, guy's still swinging, busting up those rocks, happy as can be. He goes, okay, you are going to have to explain to me why you're laughing. He goes, because hell has frozen over, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, that means my wife must have taken out the trash. So no matter what the devil threw at this guy somehow made a bad situation into a good thing. Now, my thing is this. Obviously, we're not here to talk about devil or hell or anything like that at the moment, but the topic is we've come too far to doubt God. And I wanted to talk about that for a few minutes. In Acts, Paul and Silas was trying to make the best of a bad situation as well, and they had a bad one because they came too far to doubt God. There will be times in our lives when we have to step up and stand and realize that even in the midst of the storm, we have to continue trusting God. Because during those times, we have to make the best of a bad situation. So in Acts 16:22, it said the multitude rose up against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. And when they had, in verse 23, it says, and when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast into the prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely. Now, Paul was in Macedonia due to the bidding of the Lord. And he was told to go there, and he arrived in Philippi, and he was ministering the gospel to Lydia. And to her, he baptized her, he baptized the whole household, he took care of the whole family. And while they were there, they ran into a woman who was possessed by evil spirits. And they cast it out of her, which was a miracle, and she was thankful for it. But you know who wasn't thankful for it? Her masters. They weren't happy about that. And that's when they came up and said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and beat you. We're going to flog you, we're going to take care of you, and we're going to throw you in prison because you took away our money. That's what they wanted. They didn't want that. There will be times in our lives when we are absolutely in the center of God's will, just like Paul and Silas was, but we're going to receive some beating sometimes. We're going to receive some high waves on our ships. It's not always going to be just easy coasting. So what do you do in those times? Well, in Acts 22, when they were talking about that, you can see Paul and Silas look upon each other as they're probably covered in blood. They hear the roars from the mob, and maybe Silas said, Paul, do you think we made the right decision to come to Macedonia? This might have been a bad choice. But Paul, being the more expert out of the two, said, God told us to come here. This is where we're supposed to be, no matter what the situation is. And we're going to stand fast, and we're going to stay here. We're going to endure whatever comes our way. So in Acts 16:24, they thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in the stocks. And the jailer and the guards would have taken Paul and Silas into a very innermost prison, in a part of the chamber of the prison, which was literally the most secure part of the building. Like, there's no escaping this. This is, the middle of the prison. Like, you have to go through multiple different places to get out of here. You're not just going to escape with a simple key and a rope leading down a window. This is something you're not leaving. And that was the point. They wanted to punish them in the utmost way they can. And they were put in this prison, and the stocks that were placed on their feet were most likely 2 pieces of wood that couldn't be opened. The legs were placed within, but in a manner that would have made it literally impossible for them to walk around or even attempt to escape. Meaning, not only are you in the center, you're not even going to be able to walk in this room. We are going to make this the most uncomfortable visit one possibly could do to you. And then they look at each other and they're like, do you think we've endured enough? He goes, we'll find out. This is a rough situation, but we're going to endure it because God told us to be here, and we want to be in God's will no matter what's happening. So in Acts 25, it says, and at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God. Now, Paul tells Silas, even though he's in pain and he's uncomfortable, he says, Brother Silas, I know we are in pain, but we can't sleep, but we can pray and we can praise. So even when something bad is happening and there's no end to what's happening to you, there is always prayer and there is always praise. So if you won't praise, the rocks will do it for you. And that's why we have to always keep that in our mind. But what was really interesting was that in verse 26, it said that there was a great earthquake, and so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were open, and one of the bands were loosed. And the keeper of the prison, awaking out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword, and he would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had fled. Paul and Silas refused to doubt God. Instead, they decided to pray and praise God while every one of the prisoners listened. Now, again, remember, you could be going through a serious situation, something that you just can't see the end of. But when you pray and praise, not only are you getting something out of it, but others who are watching you. Let me tell you something. When you're going through something, people are watching you. Whether it's in the church, your family, your coworkers, they are watching you. Now, I'm not saying it's always out of pleasantness. Sometimes they just want to see you fail. But don't let them see that. You continue to endure that fight and let them know that I've got God on my side, and no matter what gets thrown my way, I will endure this. But Paul and Silas refused to doubt God. Instead, they decided to pray and praise God while everyone in the prison listened. And then something odd occurred within the prison. That these two men decided to pray and reveal God. They revealed God in a mighty way through not leaving. And the guy was going to kill himself. The prison guard was going to kill himself. And they told him, don't kill yourself. Wait. The earthquake hit it so hard that the foundation of the prison was shaken. Every door was loosened. Every door opened up. Every shackle opened. Everything changed. And then they saw that. They witnessed that. They're like, what is happening right now? And then the man knew that he was good as dead if the prisoners had escaped. So he took his sword and he was about to fall upon it. But in 28, Paul said, crieth out loud, saying, do thyself no harm, for we are all here. Paul said, wait, stop, look around. We are still here. I haven't left. I haven't walked away from God. I haven't walked away from his will. I'm still here. And I think we should use this as a clarion call for the church, that when trouble and trials come our way, just wait, stop, look around. I'm still here. Your actions will speak louder than any words ever could if you constantly keep enduring the battle. Paul and Silas came too far to doubt God, so they refused to run away. They were still standing strong, standing faithful. So many in the church will run away at times when things get tough. But if we say, I am here, still standing, I'm not going anywhere, I have come too far to doubt God now. The next time trials come your way, what will your statement be? Will you look at the easy exit, or will you flee away and walk away from what you know is correct? Paul and Silas could have fled from that prison, but Paul knew that was only one way of many afflictions that he would have to face. So why run? I challenge you to remain faithful to and stand strong so that the next time troubles come your way, you can say, I have come too far to doubt God. Be blessed.